those people voted overwhelmingly for Trump. He is the president of the ignorant, the president of the disengaged. And Democrats can't ignore them. I know it's tempting for them to say, how can anyone not know what a policy issue is that's important in a national election? I got news for them. Most people can't name a Supreme Court justice. Most people can't name the three branches of government. We have an epidemic of ignorance. Hi, this is Jen Rubin, and this is Jen Rubin's Green Room. On this rather short holiday week, there still is much news. On the positive front, we've gotten word that there is an apparent truce between Israel and Hezbollah, so that the fighting in the north will cease, at least for some period of time. I think credit is due to President Biden, who has been absolutely dogged in his negotiations, despite the difficulty he's had with the Israeli prime minister, despite the difficulty that is posed by terrorist groups and their allies, which include Iran and Russia. And I think if that part of the explosion of violence in the Middle East can be contained and stopped, that's a positive thing. And then, of course, we have to turn to Gaza and hopefully resolve that as well. So that was a piece of good news. The other piece of good news, of course, was Matt Gaetz having to withdraw. And that, once again, shows that we're not going to win them all, but we can win some of them. And it is really important when the characters are really bad to go ahead and do that. The other news that's not quite news, but we're beginning to get some indications, is what Kamala Harris is going to do next. After all, she got 74 plus million votes, one of the highest totals in American history. She was given an impossible task with about 100 days to run in a anti-incumbent atmosphere, which is not only in the United States, but around the world. And she excited a lot of people. She inspired a lot of people. She showed herself to be a very capable candidate. So what does she do now? Well, she hasn't asked for my advice, but I'll give her a few of them anyway. First, there's been talk of her running for governor of California. And I would say this, unless she really wants to be governor and to govern, and potentially then to run for a second term as governor, she shouldn't do it, because she's going to be able to maintain her profile no matter what. If she's governor of California, she's got to do that job and she's got to stay in there for some period of time. And I will say California is not an easy state to govern. We know that because Gavin Newsom's approval rating is usually under 30%. It's a very difficult, complicated, diverse state with a lot of challenges. So if that's where she wants to go next, and she wants to spend a couple of years preparing for that, Gavin Newsom is term limited in 2026, and she's willing to stay in that role for one and probably two terms, then go for it. I think she would be received well. She remains popular. I don't think people blame her for the loss. I think there are a lot of other factors and people, including the president's refusal to bow out earlier on. But she could probably win that. And she could probably do a lot of good, in particular, interposing herself against the Trump administration. But if she's not interested, don't do it. Go do something else. And that something else may be president. So it's too early to say, should she run? But she's going to keep her options open. And what advice can we think of that would allow her to maintain her current popularity, to gain popularity, and to expand her base of support between now and the time that she does have to make a decision, which is probably going to be shortly after the midterms or even 2027? Well, a few things. First of all, she ran as a center-left Democrat, and that worked. She had gone, I think, too far left in 2018, 2019 when she was running. And to some degree, she had to leave a lot of those positions by the wayside. And as she said, she learned from being in office that some of those positions either weren't necessary or weren't a good idea. And she shouldn't revert. She shouldn't move her position. She established herself, I think, in exactly the right place in the political universe. And in part, she did that by stressing a strong national security profile, a strong position on border, and a strong position on crime. And I think Democrats who do that stand a better chance of sustaining a national career than people who don't. So I would certainly urge her to maintain that stance, which is progressive on social issues, pro business, but progressive on economic issues, and really tough on issues when it comes to national security and defense of the American people. And the other thing I think she needs to do is get to know the rest of the electorate that Democrats had so much difficulty reaching. Everyone has pointed to Hispanic men, and perhaps there is some outreach. But the group that I'm much more concerned about are the people who don't get any news. Those people voted overwhelmingly for Trump. He is the president of the ignorant, the president of the disengaged. And Democrats can't ignore them. I know it's tempting for them to say, how can anyone not know what a policy issue is that's important in a national election? I got news for them. Most people can't name a Supreme Court justice. Most people can't name the three branches of government. We have an epidemic of ignorance. So, on one hand, Democrats have to work on making them less ignorant, less disengaged. But I think she really has to use her incredible charisma, her incredible personality to begin to reach those people who are not political. And that may be going on other media, that may be creating her own media, that may be a role in society in which she interacts much more with people who are not the news people, not the normal people who are the regular primary voters, for example. She's got to expand and improve her ability to permeate the larger electorate to make sure that people really know who she is and know what her values are and know her toughness and her strength. And I think if she does those three things, she makes a smart decision about being governor, she maintains a center left profile, and she makes headway with people who Democrats had difficulty reaching in this election, then she'll be well positioned in 2026, 2027 to decide if she wants to run for president. The record has not always been great for vice presidents. After all, Joe Biden finally got to be president, but he ran a couple other times. Al Gore didn't get to be president. Walter Mondale didn't get to be president. Democrats can be rather harsh and difficult in moving on. But she impressed a lot of people, and she doesn't have to take herself out of the running. She can be a clarion voice, a clarion call for democracy, for decency, for kindness, for empathy. And I frankly want to see what the next act is. So we'll see what she has to do. So remember, if you like our programs, please tell your friends, your colleagues, your relatives. They can find us wherever they get their podcasts. Bye-bye.